Hi, thank you for tuning in to the Finding Harmony podcast with me, your host, Harmony Slater. Hi, Peg. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad you could join us on the show today, or me, solo.
So good to see your face.
Yeah, it's good to see your face too. How have things been in Montana? It's so funny. We're actually really close to each other. Like, what, 8
Yeah,
hours? Is that how long it took you to drive up here?
totally. Yeah, and I think it's like 8 or 10. I think it's like 8 hours to Glacier, so we're just like
Okay.
right below.
Yeah.
Huh,
Amazing.
I
So we're
know.
both
And
stuck in winter.
we both have snow.
Yes.
I love when people are saying winter is coming. No, winter is here.
Winter is here for another 6 months now. I know, right? So crazy. So, yeah, I just thought it'd be fun for us to connect. You're like the original Ashtanga yoga podcaster. When
Harmony,
did you start
I'm
Ashtanga
a
Yoga
terrible.
Dispatch?
I was a terrible podcaster. I'm a
No.
terrible. Like, yes, it
No.
was not even my idea. It was yeah, it was a long time ago. It was before it was before I ever even listened to a podcast. I remember
Right?
saying to Chris Lucas, I was like, does anybody even listen to those? And
Yeah,
he's
you're
like,
like, "What's a podcast?"
does anybody even do that? And there was this one podcast at Serial. Remember Serial? He goes, have you
Yeah.
ever heard of that? And I was like, no. And he's like, ugh. He just kind of rolled his eyes. But anyway, yeah, I mean, he got me different mics and things like that. And I loved having the conversations, Harmony.
Yeah.
I love,
Yeah.
I love this. I
Yeah.
love the interacting. I love connecting with people.
Yeah.
Wasn't really good at that. I'm part deaf. Did you know that?
Really?
Like I'm not deaf. I'm losing my hearing. I have a lot of hearing loss.
Russell
So
too. He's deaf in one ear also.
really,
Yeah.
I went to the doctor and I was like, why do I have this ringing in my ear? And do you know what tinnitus
Oh.
is, right? So I
Ah,
went to the
yes,
doctor and they
yes.
tested it. And tinnitus is I've lost my hearing. I've lost a lot of hearing. And so
Mhm.
what happens is your brain makes up noise where it's missing
Oh.
noise.
Oh, wow.
Your brain, so it's not my ears, it's my brain filling in gaps of information. Does that sound familiar? But anyway, yeah, so it makes sense.
That's kinda what we do, right?
I know what we do. But needless to say, that doesn't bode well for audio editing.
Yes. Well, audio editing all by itself it's a special skill that some people love and
Do
other
you love it?
people, no, not
Okay.
really.
You do so well, though. You do so great, and you're so good at staying. I mean, like,
Oh,
you really are just,
thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
I
It's
admire that. And I know how much work it is. Like, I know how much work it is.
Yeah, if the audio's good and, like, everything goes well, it can be, um it can happen, like, succinctly, like, within a time frame that's reasonable, but gosh, if something's wrong with the audio or something happens, it can take a long time, unfortunately. And also, I'm not, like, an audio technician. I wish I had better audio editing skills, but
Oh no, but you're a yoga teacher, and a yoga teacher is everything now. Like
yeah.
you
I
are
know,
everything
right?
now. You wear hats of yeah, you
Oh my
are what?
god. A
You are
social media manager, a marketing expert, a podcaster, a sound editor, a video editor. Um, what else? An accountant, a bookkeeper. um,
mhm.
what else? Oh, we actually teach yoga sometimes, right?
If we're lucky.
Yeah. Um, maybe like I don't know. I feel like I'm a marketing agency for myself, but I don't feel like I'm a very good agency for myself. I would fire
Oh,
myself if I paid myself anything.
well, it's two different skill sets, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
two different it is like if you went into this profession because it's something
Oh
you
my
love, like if
gosh.
this is truly what you love,
Mhm.
that other stuff is like not it's a different.
Ugh, yeah, it's really hard. It's interesting. I feel like I've talked to some people who I think this push outward, like this external sort of pressure to produce and create content and share and be out in the world and like add to this noise. So some of my yoga teacher friends are like, no, I want to go in. I don't want to contribute to this. And then others are like, no, I really want to share. And I feel like it's my duty to share. And so it's kind of interesting how people react and respond to these like very real external pressures that, you know, society, the world, media, I don't know, the modern age that we're in right now has kind of put on us. And I think COVID kind of amplified it a lot, right? Because all of a sudden we went from being in person and things you could kind of just be with people to everything being online. And then we've come out of COVID and now it's like you have to do both. You have to both be with people and be online. And it's like, what?
You know, it's funny. I was just talking to somebody, one of the members of her path like wrote me a little
Yeah.
letter about COVID, and she was saying because everybody's experience of that time has been different, and
Mhm.
I know it's not in vogue to talk about it. We're done and over. That was so 2020. We're like, you know, but we
Yeah.
haven't moved on. Things have changed, and
Yeah.
like a lot of people I've been talking to have said, you know, not only did they not get a break, like I did have a break in COVID. I'm going to
Yeah.
just like say that out loud. I live, you know, in the wild. I
Yeah.
have a garden. I can, you know, living isolated is what I
Mhm.
do anyway. But a lot of people actually didn't get a break.
Mhm.
They were thrust upon, and especially like this person was saying, she doesn't have kids. And so the people that had families, because they had to homeschool,
Yeah.
had to like pull away from work. But so then people that were still there got more of that. People like
Yeah.
doctors and dentists, they never got breaks. And so the world
Yes.
reopened and they just never had any time or
Yeah.
space to kind of, in fact, if anything, their workload increased
Yeah.
as like you're saying, so did ours. I mean, ours, it became different. Like
Yeah.
everything's different.
I feel like that. I like have a little secret dark spot in my heart that's very envious of people that got to take a break during COVID. Cuz I feel like I mean, I was one of the first teachers to go online and started teaching like free classes like 5 days a week when COVID happened, which I'm like super grateful for, and it was a beautiful kind of offering, and it was what I wanted to do, and I had absolutely no idea of like anyone that it was going to last for as long as it did, or that you know, online was the new offline or whatever, right? But but again, it was sort of that it was like a massive increase all of a sudden in my workload because I went from kind of teaching, you know, workshops and retreats. And when I was home, I actually was kind of in my own space and practicing and resting and just being a mom. And then when COVID happened, all of a sudden I was being mom. I had my son Jediah full time. I was homeschooling. I was teaching every single day. I was video editing. I started a podcast. I was audio editing. And like all of a sudden I think my workload increased at least, I don't know, 10 times what I was doing before. And then again it like there was no break. It just kept going.
It just kept going. Like
Yeah.
that's like that's the part I was we had a our Zoom meeting last month, and I was
Yeah.
saying to everybody, admitting that I don't know about you, but I'm I'm still a little out of rhythm.
Totally.
I'm not I
Yeah.
just I'm not really positive what's going, like where the world is. I feel like
Mhm.
I'm just sort of like a little off step. And even within myself, because there's like a whole new rhythm that has to be established.
Yeah.
And like you, I began, you know, new things and
Yeah.
new concepts and ideas that kind of were outgrowths of that time. But I haven't really, I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know that if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like I just sort of feel a little out of step with the rest of the world.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're able to like are you finding ways to establish new habits and new rituals and new routines now? Like recognizing that you feel like, okay, things have been a little bit out of step for a long time, or, a while now, whatever a long time is. Yeah, how are you like reframing? How are you reapproaching your practice or your routines, your rituals to like kind of come back into alignment?
I think weirdly, it's like it's not the actual routines or rituals because they
Mhm.
really for me didn't change a whole lot. I'm not traveling as much except to go see Megan, but I kind of like that. Like I'm not a big, again, I do like
Mhm.
home. And
Yeah.
even in winter, despite winter, I do like
Yeah.
those sorts of things. I've become a lot more introspective, a lot
Mhm.
more I do a lot more writing, a lot
Nice.
a
Well,
lot more
that's a
small
gift of
group.
yours for sure.
Thank you. I mean, I enjoy that, but
Yeah.
but writing takes time, and
Yeah.
it takes a lot of solitude and quiet and
Mhm.
and time. I mean, I was reading this book, How to Write. It was Annie Dillard, and she
Mhm.
was saying the average number of years it takes for a person to write a book is 10 years,
Wow, I
right?
believe it.
Like you have these people
Yeah.
that can push one out in 6 months, right? Or something like
Yeah.
that. But it's like once in a blue moon. And she said, so why do we like fill ourselves with these ideas of extremes? Like we
Yeah.
compare ourselves to the extreme, the 6 month
Mhm.
person, or we do that in
Yeah.
yoga, like somebody who can, who like sailed through
Yeah.
this or can do
Yeah.
that. Why is it? She's like, yeah, and people eat automobiles too. And people like do like, there's all
Yeah.
sorts of like weird, absurd, extreme things that
Yeah.
people do. We don't feel like we have to conform to that, but yet we have these sense of achievement that we
Mhm.
think that, oh, that we compare ourselves to that and then beat ourselves up when we're not like making significant headway quickly. And
Mhm.
I guess that's what I've learned. As she was saying, writers do that. And
Yeah.
I think for a long time I did because I had so many other things I was doing. I don't think I realized that writing actually takes
Yeah.
time to flesh out. 70% of what you write gets trashed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just the time writing, I mean, I notice this with myself too, that if I'm always in action and doing things, which I have been a lot, it's hard to feel creative. It's hard to tap into that creative energy. Like you really, for me, like personally, and maybe you can relate to this, need space and quiet and like just like time to just be and to like walk or to just like not be doing, right? Just being. And then all of a sudden, like you get those downloads, you get those creative juices. And I think a lot of people experience this in their yoga practice too, right? Because like all of a sudden they're not like doing something, thinking about something else. They're just being in their body with their breath. And then they're like, they get these amazing creative ideas, right? Because all of a sudden you're slowing down enough to just be. But if you're constantly like doing, it's really hard to. And so as a writer, I mean, it must be impossible to to
That's
feel
so weird.
creative.
We just talked about that in
Yeah.
because the last element of
Yeah.
the path was space. And what I
Yeah.
said was because we were talking about meditation or contemplative practices and
Mhm.
how the mind becomes distracted and you do get those wonderful ideas.
Yeah.
But and that's because we don't give ourselves a space outside of that. I
Yeah.
mean, the best ideas come to you, well, for me, in the
Yeah.
bathtub. When I'm in the bathtub or when I'm in the
Yeah.
shower. Like, in fact, if I'm writing and I'm like at a stalemate, I'll just go take a shower or go sit in the tub or,
Yeah.
go take a walk. But you have to like loosen the strings. And if we
Yeah.
just spend time going from one thing to the other, then that's what distraction is. And even scrolling on our phones, people
Oh,
think, well, when
yeah.
I get checked out, but that stuff imprints too. It just makes it all the more
Yeah.
um, full. And
Yeah.
so then you get to your yoga practice, you're right, you slow your breathing, you slow your body, and all of a sudden you're like, where's my notebook?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but that's because we didn't give ourselves
Mm.
space before. But
Yeah.
also nobody lets us have that, or nobody, the world doesn't make it seem like we're allowed to have that space. You have to be productive. And how
Mhm.
productive is sitting in a bathtub for an hour or, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
We measure productivity by output.
Mhm.
And that's with writing, that's with yoga, and with those
Yeah.
things. It's not actually, we need what you said,
Yeah.
solitude, stillness
Stillness
and
is
silence.
space. Silence, yeah.
Silence.
Yeah. I mean, those are my I hate to say it, but those are my favorite things. Solitude, silence, and stillness. It's like, just give me that, okay? That's all my soul craves all the time.
But the
But it's
stuff that
hard.
comes
You
out of
have to
that,
really,
yeah.
like, you have to create boundaries in your life to guard that space because it's easy to fill up. And not even just yourself, like, the world will fill it up.
Oh, you have to protect it and keep it sacred. But also,
Yeah.
the silence for me especially is like, if I again open up social media or see something and I'm like, oh, I should be doing, you get the like,
Yeah.
I should be doing that. I mean, the
Yeah.
podcast was a big deal. I haven't put one out in a year.
Yeah,
And
wow. Wait,
yeah,
you put one out with, Leah?
I haven't put one out in a
Was that a
year.
year ago?
Yeah, I think
Oh my
so.
gosh, really?
I mean, I really haven't put. I'm like, we
That's
were.
crazy.
It's okay. I mean, but
Yeah.
I literally. But every time I would like see like other, I'd be like, oh my god, I haven't put one out. I should be doing that. I should be. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but I don't feel. So I would have to go. Okay,
Yeah.
wait a second. Do I really feel that right
Yeah.
now, or am I being influenced? And if I don't take a moment to just, because you can't, contrary to what the world would like, you can't have everything. You
It's
can't do
true.
everything.
It's
You
true.
really do. Choice involves sacrifice. And if,
Yes.
and if you are not willing, you have to let things go. And oftentimes we do things, but we don't realize what we're sacrificing. When we try to do everything, there are really important things we sacrifice without even knowing.
Mhm.
Unconscious, how many, like, the friend that we didn't sit down with, the sleep, that things we sacrifice things all the time in
Yeah.
order to keep up,
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
order to do a lot of things. But then, so if we take a little moment, we go, okay, what am I willing to sacrifice? And that was something. I'm not, like, in writing takes a lot of time, and
Yeah.
these new things. We started a mentorship program this year, and
Yeah.
that is, oh my gosh, Harmony. This is like the
How did it
beauty of
go?
online. This is
Yeah.
the beauty of online, which like nothing I planned,
Mhm.
which is the way the best things go. It it is like, I've never met almost everyone in this group.
Oh, amazing.
Again, they decided we should have a little retreat. So they're
Yeah.
actually, 6 of them are coming out here to Montana next week
Oh,
for little
amazing.
mini just for
Beautiful.
just for our mentors, and then 3 more coming to Tasmania. So we're
Amazing.
like, but you realize, I feel like I know them so intimately. We meet
Yeah.
twice a week. We
Yeah.
really, like, it's just these beautiful relationships. We have like the Slack group where we're not only the relationship with Megan and me, but also with
Yeah.
each other. Like,
Yeah.
they all feel like they know each other. And
Yeah.
I have been fascinated
Mhm.
and inspired to, like,
Yeah.
watch this flourish and grow, and
Mhm.
just, I don't know. It was nothing. It's
Beautiful.
what I hoped. I also, I'm a mentor at the elementary school. I volunteer
Oh,
down at the school,
amazing.
so I do a little, so it's like a little
Yeah.
bit. And I really believe in those relationships. I always
Mhm.
have. I just, as a
Yeah.
teacher, um,
Yeah.
I think there's a role of a teacher, but I think the role of a mentor is different.
Yeah.
And I've always been kind of drawn to the mentor role,
Yeah,
someone who
totally.
walks with you, kind of, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just more me. And I feel like a lot of good teachers turn into mentors. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
That's
A good teacher with
yeah,
a relationship turns into a mentor.
totally.
But yeah, and so I've
That's what
always
I love
seen.
about coaching too. I love, like, it's very similar to mentoring where you're not telling someone what to do and you're not like being pedantic about, like, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, and da, 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 da. Like, that was never my style. I'm like, what feels right for you? Let's, like, which is much more coaching, right? So I feel like I love that, and I think it's actually what um I don't know, community world. I'm not sure exactly, but I feel like a lot of times it gets missed in yoga, because people want someone to tell them what to do, and they want something to be black and white, and they want a right and a wrong. And so that they can identify as like, I'm doing it right, and I'm a good girl, and I don't want to do it wrong, and I want to, be perfect and like all these things, right? Which is really interesting because it's actually all the patterns that we're supposed to be kind of unraveling and unwinding through yoga. But actually what happens is, I think it seems to me, this is what I've seen a lot of.
Keep going.
We get into this practice, and maybe for a while it kind of unravels some of this stuff for us in relation to how we are in the world. But if we don't get into those patterns from the root, if we don't identify with them, we just start projecting them onto the practice and onto the community of the practice, and we start to create again like those hierarchies in the community, and where do we place in the hierarchy. And in order for there to be hierarchy, there has to be better than and less than, and more correct and less correct, and all these things, right? And so then we kind of get stuck in just being sheep again and being led and being told like, oh, this is right, this is wrong, and not like, how does it feel for you, but no pain no gain, or well, maybe tomorrow it'll be better or whatever, right? Where we're always projecting into like a future state where we'll like be better, rather than actually going in and realizing that it's perfect just the way it is.
It's so you said the stuck part, and
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to, and like what we're attached to. And I guess you started the conversation before we were recording, and you
Yeah.
asked me about Megan,
Yeah.
and yeah, and you were like, do you think she's going to stay in Tasmania, right? And like, and then I said I try not to
Yeah.
do too much, because the thing is like, she's changed. Like, she's not the same daughter that lived here. She's not the same little girl that I raised.
Mhm.
She's growing, and as in our relationship then has to shift.
Yeah.
And so, yes, in the beginning, when she's young and she's, you know, I dictate her bedtimes, and I
Yeah.
help her, you know what I mean? Like, I tell her with it,
Sure.
I make her dinners and things like
Yeah.
that. But that's what we don't seem to be wanting to shift. I have to actually let go
Yeah.
of the role of a mom a bit too. But
Mhm.
it's so, what we don't realize is like, when you let go of the role of the mom because she's, taking on the role of adult, there have been times when our roles have switched. During menopause, she
Yeah.
really took care of me during that year when I was really struggling. She
Yeah.
came, she cooked for me. She,
Nice.
she screened my phone calls. She was
So
really,
good.
she was like my boundary, and
Yeah.
she would say, it's time to go. She would say to me, it's time to go to bed. Like, you have to go to
Yeah.
bed, and at first when that happened, I felt guilty. Like, oh God, this is not what a daughter is supposed to do. This is like,
Yeah.
why am I, there's something wrong with me. This is like, I should be stronger. I should be better. But actually, well, I couldn't. So, that helped. I was just like,
Yeah.
I couldn't. I really did need her to take care of me. But I saw her flourish,
Yeah.
and being able to take on that role. And our relationship really shifted around that time, because
Yeah.
she got to kind of rise, and we reestablished a different rhythm and a different type of
Nice.
relationship. And those things have to happen, and we
Yeah.
have to let them. And that's what ends up happening when we institutionalize a method or whatever. We
Mhm.
get really stuck in these roles. And so a student, whereas in the beginning, sure, you do teach students in the beginning very specific things, and
Mhm.
you give them more input, more advice, more
Mhm.
more of
Yeah.
everything, more of support. But also, you have to take a step back then and allow them to struggle, to fail sometimes. Not like we did that with our kids, right? Couldn't save your kids from every struggle. You
Yeah.
shouldn't save your kids from every struggle. Then
Yeah.
they never know how, and they don't build the confidence.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
build the confidence to know that they can do it if we don't show them that we
Mhm.
have the confidence. And so then COVID came along, and I think that's why students panicked.
Mm.
What will I do? Oh my
Yeah.
God, what will I do? The same thing
Yeah.
you've been fucking doing every day. Like, what will you do? Like, you just won't do it in a place. Yeah, it's a little hard. Yeah, you won't have people. But
Yeah.
it's like the way we go from temperatures from 70 to, 20.
I
It's
know.
abrupt. And that was abrupt. But look what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
They acclimated, people
Yeah.
like rediscovered their practice and built confidence. It didn't come without a struggle, but it came, and it
Yeah.
would. And so I would hate to see us go back to that
Mm.
old model. I
Mm.
feel like we just, like, COVID did us a favor. It kind of shattered that, right? It gave students confidence. I mean, you and I have always practiced alone. We live, in cold places. And so, like, yeah, there's no, like, it don't get warm here, and it don't get humid. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you learn, like, when I go somewhere else, I'm like, oh my God, I love this body. But
Yeah.
most of the time, it's a cold, rickety body that I practice with, in
Yeah.
altitude. So, but I would hate to see us go back. And I do see a little bit of that slipping back, and it kind of makes me sad.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I feel like there's a little bit of like maybe it kind of put people in a little bit of different camps. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm just interpreting it that way or if really there's sort of like the orthodoxy got more orthodox and the people maybe who were like not sure kind of like either went into more orthodoxy or went into more openness. I'm not sure.
I
Maybe
just
some
mean
people
the
got more open.
information. I just mean, like, here's how you do
Oh,
this. And, like,
yeah.
now we don't have to just wait for students to come to tell them. Now we can just write books on our Instagram post and, like, this is how you do it. And, like, and I'm just like, where's the mystery, man? Where's the, like, you know, I
Yeah.
know it doesn't sell. I get it. I'm losing followers by the day. And I'm like, but
Me too. Don't worry about it.
where's the fun in being like, so now we just found another way to tell people how to do it and what to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And it's just the state of how we do everything. Even when you mentioned the either or, like, I'm either on social media or I'm off social media. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
there's an in-between place there.
Yeah, there
You
is.
don't have to, like, be a hermit. And you also don't have to, like,
Yeah. Post
bombard
every day.
everybody with,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to, like, I mean, these, like, little challenges were like, I'm going to post every day for the next 365 days. I'm like, Jesus God.
Yeah.
Yeah, please don't.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Take a Lord's Day.
but at the same time, it is nice to have various perspectives. And I really
Yeah.
admire the people, and you do this, like, that
Yeah.
can just be themselves and kind of put things out there that, that are relevant, that are happening, that are personal, but also teachable,
Yeah,
but
I
not,
hope. I
not
hope.
dictatorial, or
Yeah.
like, and not like so much information. I mean, this is part of the
Yeah.
fun, is figuring things out, and, like, why do we take all the fun out of it?
Yeah, and I think too like I like this about your mentorship when I saw you were doing the mentorship I was like, "Oh, that's exactly what I want to do." Um
It's
because
so fun.
I love the idea. I mean, I have an inner circle like mentorship program as well, but it's a little bit different. Yours is very themed by the month, which I love um, and I think that it lends itself a little bit more to kind of where my interest is and what I love about yoga is that it's actually not really about the practice. It's not really about what you're doing with your body at all. And so it's kind of hard for me to give a shit actually about the physical practice these days because for me that's not what yoga is. Like it's not touching your toes and it's not doing a back bend and it's not like Surya Namaskar A and B. Like it's just not. Like that's a
Oh, but
physical
it is
practice.
harmony. But it is.
You think?
Yes, I do. Like, I'm so weird. Like,
No,
yes.
I don't think it is. Let's talk about it. This is
Okay.
exciting.
I think it is, because I'm like, oh, like, doing a back bend, like, it's the only time in my practice when, if I'm in Kapotasana,
Mm.
the only time when I can don't think about anything else. I can't think of anything else. I don't have the wherewithal. I just am so present in my body and really in my breath and just thinking, how much more can I breathe? Can I stay here? Can I stay here? Can you get to the place in your
Mm.
back bend where you don't escape it by leaving or escape it by dropping into it? You know what I mean? Can you stay in that intense moment of presence when there is like you just like that is what we want to bring into the world. So if I can do that in Kapotasana where I don't go back and catch my, I don't like contort my body and strive to, I'm not going to hurt myself. It's not about my heels. I don't care
Mhm.
where I go. I care where I am. And so getting to
Mm.
that space where I don't leave it because I can't deal, you know what I mean? Like I don't escape
Mhm.
it. And both are escaping, whether you're striving to get it or you're striving to leave it. They're both, neither one of them
Mm.
are staying with it. So I use my practice, not just to
Mhm.
regulate, sure, there are parts of my practice I used to regulate and regulating your body because the way you think is the way you move and the way you behave. But
Mm.
also you can change that by the way you move. You can slow by slowing your body
Yeah.
down. You can
Yeah.
change, as we just talked about earlier, you can change the thought
Mhm.
patterns. You can open up space in the mind. The two, you can't separate them. And so the reason why I still love it, I am 57 years old. I want to be active and moving and practicing and embodying
Mhm.
in whatever way I can, as long as I can.
Mhm.
It's just that we become small minded. I think what you were talking about,
Mm.
I'm just writing about this, is the way we take the practice and we have no imagination with it. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
Warrior One is all about like the angle of your leg and, the direction of your back foot and like,
Yeah.
oh, please. What if we looked at them as like shape shifting? Like
Mm.
embodied the energy and spirit of a warrior, or
Mhm.
found the rhythm of a flow, or like I just said,
Mhm.
found the presence, the backbend, the dynamism, the aliveness that comes with the backbend, and not shrink away because, my God, for women, that's what we do. We shrink away from that exposure, that bigness, that like expansion. Can I
Mhm.
stay in that and not shrink away? And also not bend over for it, not like,
Okay.
like, yeah, can I stay
Yeah.
in that expansive, uplifted, open, but
Mhm.
strong space and be it? And so those were like, if we could just get away from like our literal, boring, like rational, literal mind, if we could just kind of, and I get that's where we start,
Yeah.
but it sure as hell shouldn't be where we end, and we shouldn't be ending up there after. I mean, you'll quit. Everybody will quit. If that's all you're like doing, you'll quit, just like everything else. Somebody's, I'm a runner sometimes. I'm a sometimes runner, but
I'm a
I'm
sometimes runner.
I'm a sometimes runner. Like I do it when I'm like pissed off with the world. I go running,
Yeah.
or or something
Yeah.
like that. But I'm not an everyday runner because running to me is running. It's just
Mhm.
it's it's something I do physically. I
Yeah.
but yoga is more. So yeah, no, I like the shapes.
What I like what you said about that is the being with the sensation and not trying to escape it or suppress it or push it away, but to just like be with it, which to me is the yoga. But I don't think you need to do a back bend to do that. I think you can actually tune in somatically just seated and
You are
feel
probably
it.
further along on the enlightenment path than I am. I definitely still need my body. Like I will not, yeah, I'm not there. I actually still I need my body. I feel like there is something about it. It's learning. I've learned to challenge my body in
Mhm.
those ways, but I'm challenging my belief systems too at the same time, and I'm learning to do it different. So it's
Mm.
not with achievement in mind. I could care less, and
Yeah.
I could care. I could care. I do care, but then I don't care. So like with that, I go into it with full of passion, like I care, and I care, but
Yeah.
then I'm also really passionate about where I end up.
Mhm.
They're all, and that's the part, right? That's, if we go in, listen, to be honest with you, I think that it's good for sometimes we take a step away from the asana practice because it's hard. It's hard to deprogram that. It really
Yeah.
is. It's really hard to deprogram that. And you're being fed it all the time. We'd be unrealistic if we weren't saying that. I mean, we just talked about the tutorials and and the
Yeah.
telling people what to do and things like that. So it's kind of hard to tune that out somewhat, And so if that's being fed you and it's already somewhere programmed in you, it's hard. You almost kind of got to do a clean break.
Well, yeah,
Um,
this is a question is if you're constantly practicing all the time, how are you not identified with the practice? Who are you without your asana practice?
I'm not a very nice person without it, but no, I know, I hear what you're saying. It's not identifying with it.
But people
I,
do. I mean, I
oh
don't know if
God,
you
of course
do,
they
but
do. Of course they do. Of
because
course
if
they
you can't
do.
be a nice person without your asana practice,
Well,
then you're addicted.
mm, then you could say I'm addicted to healthy food too, and I'm addicted to sleep, and I'm addicted
No,
to
because I
say,
mean, the thing is, I think if you're using it to feel normal, it's like a bypass to actually just feeling into who you are. Because if you just slow down and you just be and you just notice, like 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 close your eyes for a second and just like tune into your body and just notice like who am I without this practice? And just like feel what comes up. Notice how your body responds or notice if there's any fears or like judgments or statements that come up, right? And then that's like kind of what you have to work with because I feel like again, it's just like another identification. You get attached, and that's like not yoga actually. That's like the antithesis of the yoga practice. The yoga practice is supposed to free us from these attachments, not create bondage so that we become slaves to asana now.
it is in our definitions. You do, like, we're talking apples and oranges, and I
Uh,
do know that, and you know that too. It is, yes, I know people that identify their ability to execute postures, their ability to achieve certain whatever. But the truth is, I don't parcel out myself in that way. I have obviously various practices. Writing is a practice, journaling is a practice, walking is a practice,
yeah,
the yoga shapes is a practice, sitting is a practice. Um, and they're all part of a wholeness that we're seeking.
yeah,
I just get a little nervous because I do think so. I have heard people, and it happens. I don't know. I've watched it happen when people become discouraged, and it's somehow they've like now transcended the physical, like they're now above it. And I'm like, no. We live an earthly life. We have an earthly existence. You have a body for a reason, and you want to, and so we want to inhabit the body.
oh,
And
for sure.
very often, but a lot of people, you can use the asana practice to disinhabit the body. If you're just executing
That too.
postures and forcing your body to do, that is not inhabiting your body, that is using your body, and that is
Mhm.
very different. But
Mm.
very different. And so
Yeah,
I
that's an
think that's it.
interesting distinction, inhabiting versus using.
Yeah, and so
That's a
what you're
beautiful
talking about
distinction.
sitting is what we're wanting to drop into. And
Yeah,
everybody's needs are different. Like for
yeah.
some people, obviously I have a very active nervous system. You can tell by the conversation, correct? I mean, like I have I have a lot of energy. And
Mm.
and I can be very enthusiastic, and I'm also very quiet at times. Like, so I have these like two very different parts of my personality, and
Yeah,
they come through in my practice. I love physical movement. I like to go skiing. I told you when I'm
yeah.
angry, I like to go run. Um, I,
Oh, so that's when you run.
it is when I run, when I'm pissed off, you know. After Roe v. Wade got overturned, I took up running hard, man. By the way, I'm a terrible runner, just so you know.
So
I
am
am
I.
a, no, I am a really bad runner. Like I run a 15-minute mile. I am terrible at it. And you know what? Sometimes it's exactly what I need anyway. I don't,
Yeah.
it's like letting go of that and listening to your body. There are times, yes. Was it natural to be angry and want to hit the pavement after a Roe v. Wade gets overturned?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think that was what it ordered. Yeah, I didn't want to sit on my mat, and like contemplate it.
Right.
I wanted to get my feet on the pavement. I wanted to, and it
Mhm.
helped me kind of also move through those emotions and
Mhm.
move through so that I could then regulate my nervous system, right?
Mhm.
Otherwise, I've just got all that energy that I'm just gonna get on social media and I'm gonna rip someone to shreds. It saves people,
Yeah.
but but I look at yoga more as like, yes, it is. I think that those things have taught me. There were times when like I used kapatasana or back bends because I struggled with those, because those were the ones that brought up fear. Those were the
Mhm.
ones that made me short of breath. It brought up anxiety. And so as I learned to breathe through those in a very physical, somatic way, I've
Mhm.
actually learned in other ways when the nervous system gets heightened
Mhm.
at other times off my mat. I don't have to react right now. I can stay with this. I can breathe with this. And and it teaches us, when I taught elementary schools, this is what we
Mhm.
did. We taught through stories, we taught through games and exercises because kids could comprehend lessons when you got the whole body involved, that it actually
Mhm.
translated. You read a child a story, that you talk about it, right? A story on
Yeah.
sharing or whatever, and you
Yeah.
have the whole outcome, and then afterwards you talk about it, and then they apply it to things that are going on in their life. Oh yeah, that's like when me and so went somewhere, and they did this and it hurt me, and how did you act and whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the way we do that too on our mat. We're
Yeah.
like
Totally.
making these like little imprints, but it is important, as you said, how we're doing it. We could go in there and reinforce bad patterns too. We could go out there and keep reinforcing the bad habits. I mean, yeah, you can. You can control the way you think. And so if you enter your mat thinking the same way, that maybe, those old habits, those old habitual patterns of thinking, if you take that onto your mat, yeah, you'll just reinforce
Yeah, and I think
the
until you
same.
actually slow down though and start to question your thoughts, and I think this is where we get confused in our modern yoga world, is we think that the yoga is this physical asana practice. But I mean, when you look at Patanjali or you look at actual like yoga from India from like ancient times, it's about the mind. It's a mind practice. Even Patabi Joyce used to say yoga's mind medicine. It's not really, I mean, our body is, yes, an extension of our mind in the world. It's our a tool or a vehicle or a sensing thing, right? And so we can use the somatic sensations and our embodied experience to help, give us feedback about what's going on, about what we're thinking, what we're feeling. But until you slow down enough to like see your thoughts and to question them, then I think you're just going to unconsciously continue to reinforce the same patterns.
We had a journal assignment. My mentors had a journal assignment last week, and it
Yeah.
was this. Because all of our everything we do is guided by thought. And
Mhm.
we all have probably 5 thought patterns that pretty much shape everything we do. And so the journal assignment, and at first it was really hard. So think about this.
This sounds
So
good. We
it
should
was
give this
good.
as homework for
So,
our
yeah, right.
listeners.
So what 5 thoughts,
Yeah.
prevailing thoughts, guide you? But then there's a
Mhm.
second part. Ready? What 5 thoughts do you not entertain as a result of having those 5 thoughts?
Mm.
So it's
Yeah.
like this.
Beautiful.
And at first, you have to really sit with it because it doesn't come to you right away. But
Mhm.
then Megan and I were on the phone during our afternoon walk, and we were kind of like going back and forth. And it was funny. I was like, oh, I know what one of mine is. And before I could tell her, she goes, you'll understand everything will work out in the end. You'll understand everything will be okay in the end. Like everything will
Right.
be okay in the end. And it is my like little mantra. And
Yeah.
it's like this, like, and I must say it all the time because she said it to me. And I was like, oh
That's
my God, that's
funny.
exactly what I was going to say. And I was, because I have this, like, to me, I do believe that there's a process for everything and that we'll know in retrospect
Yeah.
the ways we've grown. Like, so it's my way, I guess, of getting through the dark times. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm just in the process. I'm going to trust it. I'm going to have faith in it. But that's just
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
way of, and so anyway,
Yeah.
and hers is like, that child will create challenge. She was an artist at first, right? And so she was
Yeah.
afraid that yoga was gonna like destroy her art, because you have to be miserable to make good art. You have to like take from your suffering and you're like churning. And
Right.
so Megan's
Yeah.
always, she just decided to go back to school to get her master's in psychology. So like
Oh, good.
so she's like, but things were just starting to, like, things were getting easy. So what'd she do? I'm going to go back to school. Like, she just does that. She couldn't
Yeah.
move to Byron Bay where it's all like sunshine. And she moves to Tasmania where it's like on the other side of the world. And, she just like has that's her mindset. But it's really fun when you start to like see these
Yeah.
things about yourself. And so the rest of the mentors did that. And it was great because we could
Mhm.
see how also we bring those same thought patterns,
Mhm.
you know for good or for bad, right? Everything can be an ally or an enemy. It's not
Mhm.
like I can use that same thought pattern. Everything will be okay in the end. That can be a good way of just like, you know, um,
Yeah. Not
not
dealing with
acknowledging.
anything. Yeah.
Well, it can be like disregarding someone's suffering. It can be a
Right.
really crappy way. Can you imagine saying that while someone's saying, yeah, everything will be okay in the end? Yeah. Like,
Right, right.
how helpful is that? But
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
but also that faith, that abiding faith and believing and being committed to a process is also really good. So everything has dark and light,
Yeah.
but
It's
just
true.
noticing, as you said, what are the thoughts? And that caused us all to slow down because nobody could come up with this one pretty quickly. We all had to kind of like spend
Yeah.
some time. And it was a, so those are the
Yeah.
things that that's what we sort of do in our mentor. Like we
Yeah.
really work with those thought patterns, belief systems, but also very physical too, and how
Mhm.
those apply and,
Yeah.
how we can practice them, change them,
Yeah.
um, you know,
That's great. Yeah.
using the various facets of our practice, not
Mhm.
just the body,
Yeah.
the mind, the
Mhm.
spirit.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right
the
now is
breath.
imagination. That's our new topic right now. It's
Oh,
imagination.
cool. Yeah, there's one activity that I've done before in a program. Sometimes I also give it to my coaching clients where you write down any negative thoughts that you're having about yourself or your life, and in like a notebook for a day. And every time you have the same thought, you put a tick beside it. And that's an excellent way of noticing like what your thought patterns are and what some of those darker thoughts are that are coming up, because those are the like the ones that actually are like going to take you down in the end, right? Like the I can't do it, or I should have done this, or I should have done that, right? All those should haves, or
What would
whatever
be
it
really
is,
interesting to do is to do this too, is to go, so what was happening just before you had that thought?
Yeah.
What triggers the thought? And then it
Mhm.
really would like imagine that, because as you were
Yeah.
saying it, I was thinking, oh, I know social media is like, it's a terrible place for me to hang out. I don't hang out
Yeah.
there very often
Yeah.
because if I were to have, the truth is, I never have those kinds of thoughts in the garden. I never have those
Right.
types of thoughts
Mhm.
wandering,
Yeah.
wandering mountains and like,
Yeah.
sometimes on Cradle Mountain when I was like doing that bouldering up at the
You're
top,
like, "I shouldn't have done this."
yeah, there was a little bit like, but that was actually realistic. I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if that was like negative self-talk as much as it
Yeah.
was realistic. But,
You're like, "Am
but,
I gonna die today?"
yeah,
I
my
hope
goodness,
not.
but it's like, I think sometimes we don't realize that that there are toxic places for us, and activity, or
Mm,
what triggers that and things like that. And if we can start
yeah.
to see where the pattern begins and what brings that on, it'd be nice to, because I know if I'm feeling a little
Yeah.
vulnerable, or I won't, you won't see me on there. I just kind of put it away because I know it's just not, it's not, I have to
Yeah.
be strong. You have to have a certain amount of fortitude
Yeah.
to maintain your self-esteem and sense of self-worth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it is interesting because also sometimes it's just a tape, you know? It's just a it's just a playlist that we have. And sometimes it doesn't even have much to do with what's going on at all. It's just the way that we're perceiving the world. And to me, that's like the powerful thing about actually like starting to do some of that deeper work with the mind and with the awareness is you see like, oh, this is just me reacting. And I could be reacting a totally different way right now. Right? Like I can go out in 11 degrees Fahrenheit and walk the dogs and think it's too fucking cold to be out here. Why do I have to do this? I don't want to be walking right now, right? I can like insert tape and push play and get all of my shitty thoughts about what I'm doing, or I can be like, this is amazing. Think of all the extra calories I'm burning in the cold today. And I love walking and I'm in nature. This is awesome. And look at how happy the dogs are, right? And it's like just a different tape. And so it's so fascinating to see like how we frame our experience because the experience itself is most often, not always, but often it's kind of neutral. But how we're seeing it, how we're interpreting it, how we're experiencing ourselves in relation to it is, I would say, most often or often like an unconscious kind of way of being.
well, I think you just said it. It's unconscious,
Yeah.
and that's what becomes very dangerous. Is that when
Yeah.
we are operating from an unconscious
Yeah.
space, and so that activity is super good because it allows you to be conscious. I mean, and
Yeah.
that is and kind of,
Hopefully. Hopefully, we're
yeah.
not going unconscious in it, right? Which is, I think, the whole thing with the yoga practice that we were talking about is when you're embodied and you're like being present to those sensations, like you were talking about, then it becomes like a conscious process. But I think there's also a way of practicing where it's just like rote routine and it's easy to slip into unconscious.
But that's why we write it down. That's why we say it out loud. When you say something out loud or you write it down, you give it form. And so it's
Yeah.
hard, really hard
Yeah.
to
For
remain.
writing is good.
But you have to really work hard at staying unconscious then. Once you write it down or you say it out loud, oh,
Yeah.
geez, then it's almost like, every time you slip into that mode, you're like, ah, that's me again. And then there are,
Yeah.
times, of course, that they're really embedded and the mind is a little trickster, and
Yeah.
can like find its way. I remember this. I was working with a meditation
Totally.
teacher. It's just so good.
Mhm.
And we were extending my times, and anyway, I was so proud of myself. I said to him, I noticed that while I was sitting, my mind started to get distracted. And so I didn't want to get into that bad habit and reinforce that bad habit. And so I called it a day. Like that was, and he was like, Peg, you did it again. And I was like, what? And he goes, you stopped short. You quit early. Like, he's like, you, you did. He's like,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh yeah, like I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. Like I wasn't going to not be successful at it, so I found a way, and I even found a way to justify it. I was going
Yeah.
to teach myself good patterns. So I was very noble and very,
Yeah.
and we do that with the yoga. We use these noble efforts of self improvement and transformation
Yeah.
when really we're just like, trying to get somewhere. Like we can trick ourselves too, but
Totally. We trick ourselves all the time, I think. Like, I mean, I'll raise my hand. I'm great at tricking myself.
and that's why we don't always need. So then there's the solitude, stillness, right?
Yeah.
And silence, but also we need other people in our lives that
Yes,
we
100%.
know and trust, that can go, is that true? Like, are you sure? Like,
Yes.
and And that's something else that we surround ourselves with the chorus.
Yeah.
Like you and I have had like, no, I think it's this way. No, I think, and we're like doing that. And that's really good because that's what helps us expand and
Yeah.
break loose of those constraints. If we're always surrounding ourselves with people that think just like us
Yeah.
or want to please us, or, and that's teachers. Like if teachers are only hanging out with their students who have a need to please, they're
Yeah.
never going to be able to continue to grow themselves. But so we need other people to kind of reflect back to us. Trusted other people, not random people on the internet, not people that are invested in your success and love you and
Yeah.
support you. You have to have a relationship with these people.
Yeah.
And that's why we did the
Yeah.
mentorship for a year. I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not going to, let's get to
No.
know each other. I care. I will invest myself,
Yeah.
and I love that relationship between people, and that we grow through relationship. And so that kind of
Totally.
helps. Like I had to have that guy. I had to have, I had to
Yeah.
have the psychologist say to me, you just did it again. and
Yeah.
and it was funny, and I was like, oh my god, I did. And it was so, and I laughed. It wasn't, I
Yeah.
didn't beat myself up. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm good at this. I'm good at finding ways to
Yeah.
escape that
Yeah.
struggle. Not the struggle, it's the not being perfect, it's the not
Right. It's
getting
that
it
deeper
right.
pattern.
Oh, that
Yeah.
perfection. And that's the deep, right?
Yeah.
That's what you just said. It's the deeper
Yeah.
one. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And you never get over it though. That's the other misnomer that I
I think
think
you
people,
can. I think you can heal it. I think you can totally heal these
healing it is one
patterns.
thing and working with it, it's going to keep coming up. It don't go. These things, they get harder to trigger and they get deeper, but they are patterns. We all, unless you have transcended life, unless you are like, we all have. It's not that it's
Yeah.
not healed. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about woundedness. I'm talking
Yeah.
about, we have, these help shape us. The things we've struggled with, whatever you've struggled with in your life, has helped shape you as a teacher and helps
Yeah.
make you a good teacher.
Yeah.
So it's not that you stop struggling with them though. And I think people,
Mhm.
when they think they're going to stop struggling, they think, oh, I got over it. And then they get disappointed when it comes back up. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
that's what I mean. And no, it comes back
Yeah.
up. But look how
Yeah, you get better at
way
recognizing
better.
it.
Yes. You get quicker and you get
Yeah.
better and you
Yeah.
get more learned with it.
Yeah.
And so you get experience with it.
Yeah.
I'm really good with people that stop themselves short.
Yeah. I'm sure. You're like, "I know that one."
I know, I know that one. Yeah. That's all. I just,
Yeah, I think in that way I think you learn something about yourself, right? And I love that you bring up this. I think that is why you need a mentor or a coach or someone who can really hold like a positively honest space that's there to help you grow, who can like reflect back to you what they're seeing in a way that's helpful rather than maybe harmful, or that is uplifting rather than degrading, that's going to help you transcend those patterns or see yourself in a more honest, clear way rather than berate yourself for you know doing it again or not being good enough or whatever it is, right? And so but we need that relationship because the it is in the relationship, and even I think in the relationship to our body, in the relationship to our practice, in the relationship to how we eat, in the relationship to each other, in the relationship to our business, in the relationship to social media, like whatever it is, all of these things can be used as a tool for our freedom, for our transcendence, for our yoga. If we start to see it like, oh, this is triggering me. What is this triggering in me? And why, like, and we start to do the inquiry and have that awareness of like our own our own self within it, right? And do exactly kind of what you're saying, but it's helpful to have an actual human, I would say, which
well,
is
I mean, and
so
you can
nice
do
with
that.
your
You certainly, you
mentorship.
can do that with yourself and with
Yeah.
journaling for sure. But
Yeah,
as a
journaling's
counselor,
helpful.
if you're working with other human beings,
Yeah.
you need to have somebody else too. I mean,
Yes.
as a counselor, it's required. You don't
Yeah.
I don't get to be a counselor without having someone else
Yeah.
also that I
Yeah.
speak to, that I talk about, that I am able to share what issues come up for me, what's triggering for me. Also, somebody to
Yeah.
brainstorm with, something I've
Yeah.
never experienced before.
Totally.
Something, we want
Yeah.
to learn and grow. When I used to lead a team of counselors, that
Mhm.
was the one thing I would ask them. So that's the way I led them, is I said, you tell me. We would have a weekly luncheon where everyone would have to bring something they were, a case they were struggling with. And
Yeah.
we would all just kind of brainstorm, discuss, support,
Yeah.
encourage, whatever it was. And then as the director, I would just say, you tell me where you want to grow. And
Yeah.
it's my job, because I believe we all know where we need to grow. I don't think you need
Yeah.
somebody else to tell you that.
Not at
And that's
all.
not what a
Yeah.
mentor is. That's not what it,
Yeah.
but we need somebody to support us in it. We
Yeah.
need somebody to, like,
Totally.
obviously, if, so that's what I would say. You tell me
Yeah.
where you want to grow, and it's my job then to present opportunities and to support you in that growth.
Yeah.
And that's the way
Totally.
I see myself, as like a mentor and a
Yeah.
teacher, and not just a
Yeah.
counselor. And that's
It's so important. It's so important to have that and to have that support. And I think that's another really important point that you bring up. And I don't know that it's really, I mean, I think I used to get that when I would go to Mysore, right? Like, as a community of teachers that felt really supportive and um, connected and, you know, positive. But I think outside of, and I don't know what Mysore's like anymore, so I can't speak to it, but that was my experience when I was there and going regularly. But I don't know that, like, there's much of that kind of opportunity for yoga teachers outside of um that kind of situation. And even then, it was like once a year for a couple of months, right? And then you're kind of on your own and you don't really have a mentor because that doesn't really exist in our yoga world.
certainly not
And
built into our system, for sure.
no,
You can seek it out, you can
yes,
develop those relationships, but
exactly.
it's certainly, and it's weird, because, like, then the people that seek them out and develop those relationships are, probably the least, if that,
Ostracized.
like, they're usually pretty further along, you know what I mean? It's the ones that are like,
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
live in a culture that really, celebrates individualism,
Mm.
independence, success,
Mhm.
and it's a very exclusive mindset. So it
Mm.
doesn't leave a lot for abundance. There's not that tribal
Mhm.
thinking. That's not that, you know,
Uh,
we come together and encourage.
mhm.
We saw this with, I mean, you and I have both discussed this when it came to perimenopause, menopause, and
Mm.
when I hit it, nobody talked about it. Nobody was like, yeah, but
No,
that was a
I
time
remember.
in for women,
Yeah.
generations ago, whether it was a woman having, all those rites of passages, having a baby, getting
Mhm.
married, menopause. Those were things where the women gathered and
Yeah.
supported each other, and there was a very communal mindset. And but then that splintered. It splintered probably as we began to move away from families, and we got
Yeah, and
there.
small
We
communities, right?
Yeah,
Like, we
that all went away. Yeah,
yeah.
and so that's sort of like, we've
Mhm.
lost things of that. I think we're feeling that loss in many ways, and
Yeah.
so we're doing, people like you and like me and other people that I
Yeah.
watch. We're doing our best to reconnect those
Mhm.
smaller, right? Because we want to make climate
Yeah.
change. Everybody thinks climate change is something big. Climate change starts locally. It starts
Yeah.
in your neighborhoods. It starts by
Yeah.
being connected with the land that you live on, by
Mm.
developing a relationship with a place and
Yeah.
caring about it and taking care of it. I look
Yeah.
at my place here, yeah, and I want to leave it
Mm.
better. I don't
Yeah.
want, I want to, or at least not make it worse. And
Right.
become, but each year, Robert keeps laughing. Each year, everything gets bigger. Like we now have 5 bins of compost. We now have, like, I expanded into the garden, but every year another bed gets, like, created,
We
and
have
all of these
10
things.
greenhouses.
And we're just always, really kind of, but we have a very personal
Yeah.
investment in this. That happens in neighborhoods. My neighbor has chickens. I make bread. I go down. I give her bread. She gives me eggs, and we
That's
do a
amazing.
lot of that kind of
Yeah.
commute. I volunteer at the school. We're missing those smaller ways And
Mm.
it's through those small relationships. It's not through, I mean, Mysore's great, but I didn't find that at Mysore.
Yeah.
I loved being in the thick of, I loved being part of the crowd. It was very energizing and lovely, but I didn't really have that. I didn't have the support systems of
Mhm.
community. I mean, you and I have known each other for how long? A long time.
Yeah. I don't
I
know how
know, a long,
long.
and we
How long have
met,
we known?
maybe met there,
I think we
but
met in my I mean, we knew each other before online because
yeah,
we met online, but then we met in person in Mysore.
but then our relationship grows, like we
Yeah.
stay that connected, and then we
Yeah.
keep continue to circle back, and we build those. A lot
Mhm.
of people we work with, we overlap in those because we're building that small network. It's
Yeah.
not big. It's not
Yeah.
300 people. It's
Yeah.
not, maybe it doesn't, like, I think that's where, if that's what we're measuring success by, if that's what we're
Yeah.
measuring productivity by,
Mm.
I think it's unreasonable. And I also think it's somewhat can be damaging. I don't think
Yeah.
we elicit that same kind of change that we can in localities and small groups through
Mhm.
relationships, circling together.
Yeah.
And we're recreating those. And I guess that's what I'm saying is, like, I think we're realizing how splintered we've become and how much that has hurt our soul
Mm.
and, you know, crippled
Yeah.
us in many ways. It's made many people feel very lonely. It's different between being solitude and being lonely or feeling alone or being on your own,
Yeah.
right? There's a different, you can
Yeah.
practice alone and still feel supported.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you have
Yeah.
somebody, even if it's just like you
Yeah.
pick up the phone, you go, God, it sucks to be
Yeah.
out. Even like we were saying, it sucks all this snow, it's so cold. And like, but at least we're like,
Yeah.
we know each other's pain and we're still,
Yeah.
and that's what we're
Yeah.
connecting on that. But I think that's what we're realizing we need to
Mhm.
create. And we're lucky that we have other uh, medias to do that with. I mean,
Yeah.
I was a very big skeptic of the online thing until the mentorship. And now I'm like, I mean, I can't believe I've never met. Everybody's like, I'm going to
Mm.
cry when I meet people in person. They're all staying in the same house. They
Oh,
rented the
amazing.
same house together.
That's
And
awesome.
they
Yeah.
don't know each other, but they do. They do.
Yeah.
And so I
They
guess I've
do.
realized that that is actually possible.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
have I have
yeah,
friends that I talk to every single day, multiple times a day through like an app that's like a walkie-talkie app, and
no,
I've never met them in person. We've only met online, and I would say they're like my best friends. They know more about me than best friends that I've known, like more about me now in my current embodiment in this moment in this year in time, than friends that I've known my whole life because I don't talk to them, who live in the same city as me because I don't see them and I don't talk to them.
see, and that's your tribe, though. You've got, like, you
Yeah.
have that. That's your support. Those are your people.
Yeah,
And
so there
it's,
is, like, something powerful
yeah,
about, like, online meeting people online, especially when you're not just, like, not through social media, but, like, actually, like, doing, like, what we're doing, where you're having a face-to-face and you're sitting together and you're having a conversation, and I see them every week in this kind of group, in this kind of, women's mastermind group, and then we talk to each other throughout the week, pretty much almost
so
every
cool.
day. And, like, that's amazing, right? To have that kind of closeness and friendship and support, and we've never actually, I did meet one of them this year, or a couple of them this year, so in person, but and it was the same. We actually like this one woman that I'm very close with, I rented a hotel, and she came and stayed with me, and we stayed together for 3 days. I'd never met her before in person. We're like, "Yeah, let's hang
So
out and
cool.
share a hotel room."
Like you do. And
Yeah, why not?
that's the thing is, like, if we care about those, forming those, then we
Yeah.
will. It's not as easy as when you're going to a shala and everybody's there, but
Yeah,
it's actually can be quite meaningful because it's
totally.
intentional.
It
It's
is.
relationships that are quite intentional,
Yeah,
and it does take a little bit more work to create those kinds of connections online.
yeah,
They're harder. I mean, but as you said, they're
Yeah, they
They
can be
flourish.
amazing.
They
Yeah.
flourish. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
And
Totally agree.
I think they're harder in the sense that you have to show up for them. And I think that sometimes where like my friends that I've been friends with since, elementary school or junior high, they're always my friends. I love them, they love me. They're like family. And it's the same with my family. I have family members in this city that live 20 minutes from me. I never see them. Okay? And I'm very close with them and we have a good relationship and there's absolutely nothing wrong, right?
Yeah.
Um but everyone's busy. And so what's interesting I think about the online thing is if you have like a weekly meeting or you're meeting twice a week like in your mentorship and you actually are showing up, you're like taking a full hour or maybe 2 hours out of your week where you're actually cultivating a relationship with someone. And like that doesn't happen very often. Even sometimes in a yoga shell, especially in like a Mysore class, you can go in, do your practice and leave and not talk to anyone. And so
For
then
sure.
it's just about you. It's not really about like anyone else, right? And so
Mhm.
again, it becomes very insular and even kind of isolating in a way, right? You feel like you're getting something out of this or you're like what am I getting out of this?
It can
Rather
certainly
than
feel a
like
little transactional too sometimes,
yeah,
and
like what
yeah,
can I give? What can I bring? How can I support you? I mean, there's so many interesting things that happen when you're in kind of like you're saying, an intentional container
intentional.
and relationship with someone where you're really like showing up to be supportive for them.
Well, intention is thoughts, and we just said that thoughts
Yeah.
guide everything you do. And so, if you
Yeah.
set, I mean, it's true, right? Like these thoughts, that you're right. It keeps it sacred.
Mhm.
I think that actually is what you can't multitask. You
Yeah.
know, my
Yeah.
knitting is in the other room. I'm not knitting while I'm talking to you. You know what I mean? Like you're just, uh,
It's true.
but
It's
but
intense, right?
we often do that when we're in live
Mm.
situations. We take them, or maybe it's just we take them for granted.
Mhm.
You know, when we had them, when I lived in a big city, probably I took it for granted that I would always, there would always be somebody, and I could always practice somewhere, like whatever.
Mhm.
But we've learned, I think that is something else that came out of COVID. We learned not to take advantage, not to take for granted
Mm. Mhm.
um, those sorts of things. And so that being said, I really do. I appreciate this time that we've taken together. Like
Yeah.
this has fed me. I mean, this is like food for the soul and
Yeah, it's been
very
so nice.
inspiring.
It's
And I
been so
appreciate
great to,
this.
like, talk about some of these deeper aspects of the practice and just, like, connecting with people and what it means to connect with people and to connect with our bodies, to connect with ourselves, and to, practice yoga on many different levels. It's been really, really, really inspiring. And I assume you're gonna continue with your membership or your mentorship, member mentorship this year coming
Yeah,
with
totally.
the,
Yeah. Oh God,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so
That's been
why don't you
so
tell everyone
fulfilling.
listening where they can find you if they're interested in joining you and Meg in your beautiful circle?
Don't write me on social media.
I won't answer for a few
God,
weeks.
I don't. No, ashtangadispatch.com, and everything's on
Yeah,
there, and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and all the old podcasts, there's a few on there with that we did, and,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think also in your mentorship, you have, like, a monthly magazine where all your writing
We
where you're
do. We have
publishing
that
a lot of
separate.
your writing, right?
That's the path. And so the
Okay.
path next year, so every year we have a different theme on the path. The very first year was archetypes,
Yeah.
and it was feminine archetypes in particular that
Yeah.
we explored each month. This year, it's been the elements.
Uh-huh.
So we're now on space, and that's our
Yeah.
last one. And next year, it will be the Yoga Sutras, and we will put them
Mhm.
into modules again. We haven't decided whether we'll do it on chapters yet, but it will be based on that will be it'll be based on the Yoga Sutras, and we'll be taking them down. There'll be a lot of chanting, and there will be some coursework, but also accompanying journal. I just realized that. So the first year I put out a monthly journal. Do you know how hard that was to write a
Yeah,
monthly
I can
journal?
imagine.
That
It's
was a
like
little over ambitious.
yeah.
So this year it's a bi-monthly, and that's probably what it will continue to be, with a little bit
Yeah.
more video coursework. And of course, every month we do a live gathering.
Yeah.
And this live
Beautiful.
gathering that we're coming, you should come to it. It's on
Okay.
Sunday. You
I'll
should do
come.
this one. It's on dreams. And we're going to be
Ooh, beautiful.
decoding dreams this Sunday. So, like, because we're into
Ooh,
the space and the mind space and
nice.
imagination and using, John O'Donohue said, an un, you know, an unanalyzed dream is like a letter unopened.
I love it.
It's like just it reveals these like hidden things, the unconscious when it speaks to us at night. So everybody's kind of like journaling their dreams this week, and then Sunday we're gonna dig in. So I'll send you a
Amazing.
link. You should come. It'd be fun.
Yeah, please send me a link. I love dream interpretation. I've
Oh
always been a
yeah.
very, very vivid dreamer.
Oh
And
good. Oh,
so
you'll be fun then. You definitely have to come.
I've been interpreting my dreams for as long as I can remember. It's been something I've been very like interested in since I was a young child because I was always having all these vivid dreams. So
That just means you have a lovely imagine. That's the imaginative part of you, you know? But that's
Yeah.
also the contemplative part of you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's the part that loves that inside,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
innerscape. Innerscape,
Yeah.
not escape, but innerscape.
Yeah. INFP over here. That's me. So,
Shut up.
yeah. I am like the most
ENF,
sensitive introverted person.
ENFP, ENFP. Oh my
You're
God.
the extroverted version. I'm the introverted version.
That is so funny. Of course. No wonder we
Yeah.
connect.
Yeah, yeah. So funny.
All right.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Peg. It's been just a pleasure to connect with you again.
Oh, thank you. This meant so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Finding Harmony with me, your host, Harmony Slater. You can find out more information on my website, harmonyslater.com, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Standing in eternity's shadow, watching the breaking waves. There's a hard wind and the soil